Welcome to another episode of the JustUs Podcast. Once again, it'll just be the dynamic duo consisting of me and Tobs 26.
Hello.
For today's subject matters, we'll be talking about Watchmen by Zack Snyder, The Falcon and Winter Soldier, another Disney Plus MCU show, Sailor Moon Eternal, which is a surprising addition to the podcast, but hey, this is a shout out for the Sailor Moon fans on Twitter, and the Xbox console, the original one, which turns 20 this year.
Yeah.
Let's go from left to right as always with Watchmen. Now, it's no secret that this is a undoubtedly one of the bigger Zack Snyder fans on YouTube. I mean, we've talked about his movies and say, oh, this is good, this is good, this is good, this is good. And I'm pretty sure that anyone that probably have a hate boner for us would probably say that we're shields, even though they'd probably go back to praising everything about Black Widow, but what do I know?
I don't care. Call me a shill. I just don't care.
That being said, though, Watchmen is a film that definitely makes you think this feels more like Snyder than his like trilogy, so-called trilogy of DC films, because Watchmen feels more unique compared to Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and Justice League. Don't you think?
Yeah.
Like, honestly, when I think about Watchmen, I think it feels more exclusive, more. I don't want to say niche because Henry Cavill used that word, but it feels more like premium, like the kind of like the best of the best kind of films, compared to the likes of Man of Steel, which feels like a movie that would be available regardless of who would make it, assuming they have the same sort of DNA Snyder implemented. And Batman v Superman and the Snyder cut of Justice League definitely feel more uh like complex, more for like audiences that want to think beyond the box. But that being said, I feel Watchmen fits the bill much more because of its setting, because of its characters, and because of its commentary.
Yeah. That goes to Alan Moore too. But personally, I think that Zack. Well, to start off, this is my favorite Zack Snyder movie, specifically the director's cut, not the ultimate cut, because I'd rather watch that. What was it called? Black Friday. Like the animated segment. I'd rather watch it by its own rather than intermittent through the movie. So yeah, I prefer the director's cut. Let's start from there. And just we all know the fantastic style that Zack controls, but it's also the way he presents every single um, problem, every single how do we put it? Like every single internal topic and also external. It's just shown combined and merge with each other, and I just love it, especially the beginning. I mean, who hasn't talked about that sequence?
Oh yeah, like it has that sort of style to it, that sort of feel that screams Snyder, basically.
Yeah,
I mean, it's the mindset that if he can't do it, no one can, because like it's very much in the way he would do it. It starts off with a bang. It makes you like want to learn more about this world because it feels very different from the traditional comic book world. I mean, hell, that's the point of Watchmen. It's very distinct from the typical bright and colorful like environments.
yeah, and you can completely feel that Zack's tone is made for this type of kind of graphic novels. Even though um, for Man of Steel and for Batman v Superman and Justice League, it is also accurate and it captures very well a lot of the themes. I still think that the more ideal Zack Snyder to capture his own essence is movies like Watchmen, which he just nails it.
I agree. But more importantly, it was like a time period where he felt like he was in control of everything. Like I doubt Warner Brothers
Yeah,
was as worried about. I don't want to say doubt, but I feel Warner Brothers was not as worried of like what like Zach is doing as much as they are nowadays. Like back then, they were pretty much interested in getting the movie done,
yeah,
and whereas you compare it to
yeah, yeah.
nowadays, where they think that if he was to say hi, then the WB executive would pretty much like melt into a puddle.
Basically. But yeah, that's the sack effect. And I mean, we need to have in mind that this movie has been postponed for a long time. Like you had Darren Aronofsky that could have possibly directed it back then, and I think it would have been good as well. But just that makes this into a comic book that comes to life, and that's what he does perfectly. And I think no one can basically deny that.
Don't forget the fact that it was originally going to be part of Fox. Like Fox would have released it, even though it's weird to think about because like DC belongs to Warner Brothers,
Hmm.
and like before we got all the buyouts of 21st Century Fox and Marvel and Disney, like we were used to the fact that Marvel characters were like run by separate companies for the movies and entertainment, like Universal with Hulk, X-Men with and the Fantastic Four with Fox, Sony with Spider-Man. So to see a Disney like a DC property, I mean, thinking about that merger, to see a DC property with Fox feels kind of weird because the closest that we ever got to something like that was with the '60s Batman TV show, which I do believe DC and Warner Brothers still own, but because of all the complicated rights thing, uh, I think that's a story for another day. But yeah,
Yeah,
definitely great to see someone like Zach step forth and bring life into the Watchmen movie, and especially since the way it turned out, like I couldn't be any more happier than I already am with the end result because, whew, like it's one hell of an
man,
experience to delve into, especially if you're used to like your traditional films.
so intense. But yeah, also, let's not forget the fantastic cast and Larry Fong. I mean, no movie has been the same ever since Larry Fong kind of left Zack. Let's be honest here. I
Hmm.
mean, the cinematography in Justice League is phenomenal, and in Army of the Dead too. But just Larry Fong that has that thing that it's just a plus.
Yeah, and like it gives that like movie it has a specific identity to it.
Yeah,
It's like no one else can really replicate that style of like cinematography. It's very comic
yeah. And
booky, smooth.
also, they both of like Zack and Larry went to college together. They studied to be like well to be in the entertainment business. So basically, they shared so many experience. They must understand each other so well up to this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's kind of like they're Gemini twins in a way. Like they are connected to one another. Without one, the other
Mm,
is kind of well, I don't want to say useless, but more so like incomplete.
yeah,
And
definitely not useless.
nope,
They can give a lot of use.
pretty much, yeah. But either way, like you get that sort of feeling when it comes to the cinematography from some of the action scenes, or when you go through the montage from people celebrating the end of a war or seeing people protest. And I got to say that considering the kind of like situation we're in, where people had to go nuts in the streets, regardless of who they are.
Mm.
I've heard everybody, not just specific groups, people. Seeing like the protests in Watchmen felt more like natural. It wasn't just like petty shit, because there are actual genuine concerns over that sort of world that they're in, because these guys don't probably trust superheroes or vigilantes. They like when they were once the Minutemen, like people seemed more like accepting of them, but as time went on, when they started to go rogue, you get that feeling that they pretty much are worried about seeing like concerns over who's watching the Watchmen, pretty much.
Exactly. Also, the social and political conflicts are just so believable. And well, what can we say about characters like Rorschach or Doctor Manhattan that up to like nowadays they are still iconic. They are symbols of fiction. They represent so many layers of humanity. It was just so well casted and encapsulated and acted. Also, the visuals for Doctor Manhattan and his blue cock. Excellent.
Oh my god! Oh, that was so. Wait, no, actually, people usually complain about like, oh god, he's hot. Like, no, seriously, like the thing
I don't
is,
blame you. I don't blame you. I mean, Billy Crudup
I mean, like the thing
flashes
is, is
back.
that like the way they're presented, like the visuals just feel very like seamless, like there's and they feel like they're like it's obviously this. We can obviously say stuff like, "Oh, they belong in our world. They're so realistic." I mean, that's pretty much everything that you could say about CGI. But in this case, it's well deserved because it doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel ineffective. It works so well. You get the impact of the characters still.
Yeah, you feel like the presence is of an omnipotent being. You just see the blue light coming, and you know that some god is arriving.
That and the fact that like he's one that you would not want to mess with since his powers are far too strong. And I'd say that he's more of a like a threat than Superman is, because at least Superman has emotion to him. He probably knows how to
Mhm.
control himself unless anything bad happens to Lois or Martha Kent. By contrast,
Yeah,
like Doctor Manhattan has like no feelings whatsoever. He can pretty much like show no regret or show no like fear. As apart from when he was like hesitant of going back to Earth when he reflected on the way everyone went after him.
yeah. He's just beyond morals. He's beyond love. He's beyond grief. He's beyond everything. But you can still feel that in his core, he has this very, very sad melancholy and depression, and you can kind of see that with all his nihilism and the quotes that made him very famous, and you can see them everywhere.
Yeah,
I'm
and
tired of this world.
yep. But it feels natural. It feels organic. Like it doesn't feel as cheap or as cheesy as the shit that you see on Facebook moms post.
Yeah, no, it's no fake emotion. It comes from very dark places. The whole movie, like, I mean, when people want to say that a movie's dark, go and watch The Watchmen. Come on, shut the fuck up and watch Watchmen. That is a dark movie, and I love it.
Yeah, I agree. Especially since like it feels much more like complex. Like you really need to pay close attention to everything. You might get
Oh
lost
yeah,
easily. You might like you
I,
might
I had to watch it plenty of times.
yeah. I can't blame you. Like that's how I was when I first saw it, and I think my most recent watch was before my HBO Max account went down because I wanted to save money because I was tired of WB.
Yeah, I get that.
But either
Oh,
way,
but now HBO Max is out in South America, so huh,
interesting.
maybe for the Zack Snyder's Justice League, I can have it 1 month.
Yeah. Hopefully you get to see the DVD at some point because now they're putting out American releases of him. But hey, you
Yeah,
got
I
it.
think I already told you the UK version or the one that comes from the UK costs like 12,000 pesos in my country, and
Yep.
that's insane.
Yeah, I think we're kind of getting like a little ahead of ourselves here with Snyder Cut once
Mhm.
again. Hashtag we're sort of Snyderverse. But yeah,
Yeah,
Watchmen, definitely a great movie to delve into. Might require you to like learn more about it. But what I like most is the fact that the characters are generally like at each other's necks at times. Either that or their alliances with one another, but it might not be as tight of an alliance. I think the closest we got to a solid sort of like connection that wasn't feeling like they were going after each other was with Night Owl 2 and Silk Spectre.
yeah,
Everyone else was
yeah,
conflicted with one another heavily, whether it's from the likes of the comedian or with more prominently with the likes of Ozymandias or Dr. Manhattan or Rorschach.
yeah. Man, I just want to mention that the first Night Owl is so underrated. That old man, his last fight, his last breath was so epic. That is one of my favorite scenes. Also, that scene, the scene where spoilers, Rorschach dies, scene in which Rorschach fucking uh, it just creates that chaotic scene in prison. You know
Yep.
what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just filled with segments that are mind blowing.
Don't forget the fact that like thinking about the one scene from when he was pretty much delving into stuff like uh the argument with the guards.
Yeah,
It's all
or all the story behind Doctor Manhattan, or
yeah,
when you start to learn more about the comedian's past and all those flashbacks, they are just so great.
pretty much. Uh, I'm still thinking about like the way everyone was at each other's necks once again with the uh like the final scene where like Ozymandias was pretty much like revealing himself to be responsible for everything, and
Yeah.
I like that the mystery behind what's going on with each other, like who's causing all the incidents, who's gonna cause like the havoc involving Doctor Manhattan's powers, as well as the sort of responsibility on what's going to cause danger in the world is all done very well with
Mm,
Ozymandias. Like you wouldn't expect him to be involved, but considering the fact that he's the one with the most successful life, it kind of makes sense now, doesn't it?
yeah. It makes like a lot of sense.
But it's just like and it kind of makes me like kind of appreciate like watching the movie more and more because people say Batman v Superman was too hard to understand, and while that might be true to some extent, I don't think it's at the same level of complexity that Watchmen has
Yeah.
because like when you watch Batman v Superman, you would probably get understand it more with the Ultimate Edition, whereas with Watchmen, you got to pay even more attention than that.
Man, like, just let me be clear on something. That I believe that the ending of Watchmen, of course, is different. You don't have that octopus, but I just feel like it wasn't needed, even though it tries to communicate something in the graphic novel. Here, given we are slightly in a more modern world, uh, maybe just considering adding a different kind of ending that may connect even more and antagonize inside the movie more Dr. Manhattan. I think that's a good choice. I don't know why people always overly complained about that.
Yeah, it might be pretty goofy on their part,
Mm,
but for those that are more like interested in stuff like this, for those that want to continue the rewatches and remain strong no matter what, then you have my high praise for being strong during the Watchmen.
enjoy the Watchmen.
Enjoy watching the Watchmen.
Mhm.
Yeah. Next up, we'll be talking about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which is another MCU show on Disney Plus. And let me tell you that honestly, I'm kind of surprised that we have to delve into another show like this because back when Eternal was involved with the podcast, he was very much interested in the likes of WandaVision, which nothing wrong with that because it's a show that he likes. He likes the characters, and I thought, you know what, like since he wants to put it in the series or want to talk about it, I thought when I put it in. Although now this time it's going to be much harder because I don't think you've seen the show, and like I've only
No,
been able
I
to see bits of
haven't.
it with my brother.
And what is your opinion, or well, like your perspective on the show?
Well, I think it's an all right show. I mean, it definitely feels like a traditional action movie made into a series more than what we got with WandaVision. But you know, as someone that's
Hmm.
been tired of like the MCU getting all the praise and attention, for what it's worth, this series at least feels a little more like deserving of some of the praise. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
but before we delve into the series itself, let's talk about our thoughts on uh, our titular characters.
Okay. Go on.
Honestly, like despite being B-list characters, and despite me feeling that they kind of got like one got more attention than the other, I do think that Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes were like worthwhile additions for the MCU. Sure, Sam Wilson might be a bit notorious for his actor, as some people don't like him, and Bucky Barnes definitely kind of changed Captain America's like boat from going into being obsessed with protecting the country as well as being an Avenger to trying to go after him like some sort of chase a la Pepe Le Pew and the
Mhm.
cat that doesn't want to be near him except they fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it.
But for what it's worth, this series definitely feels a little more worthwhile than I initially thought because at first I thought that it was kind of sucky that they're not going to be on like have their own theatrical movie, but I guess at the very least having them together and having them in a series that still feels cinematic while being something you watch on television is not a bad thing. And honestly, like from what I've seen overall, like it's definitely not a bad show.
Well, that's cool. I mean, in a world where TV shows are mostly bad, a minority are good, and the 1% of the 1% are very good. That's okay.
But like, what makes it work is the fact that like if you feel like there's like a presence of importance within the series, whereas you look at something like Flash and Supergirl, and it feels like an adult version of what you'd watch on like a live action kids show that they put out these days. Like it feels like the latest episodes of Power Rangers Ninja Steel or Henry Danger or whatever Disney XD puts out these days. Like okay,
So
sure,
it is more mature.
like yeah, like okay, sure, it's like it definitely is a different budget, but at the same time, I mean, you get the feeling that there's more that's impressive for this series in both like the quality as well as the writing itself. Because while the MCU has been kind of like definitely deserves some criticisms, I think this one at least redeems itself somewhat by being smarter than what we got with the MCU in the past. Like Captain America's Civil War sort of took away my brain cells by being too obsessed with being gray, trying to be somewhat political but not quite, and of course trying to ruin BVS. Whereas here,
Yeah,
like this feels more like a genuine series, and I know some are upset about the way we get like the Flag Smashers represented, or like John Walker's portrayal of Captain America. But in a way, like it, at least this series feels a little more natural. Like we get to see stuff. I mean, I hate to like, constantly talk shit about Warner Brothers, but at the same time, like you look at the way they try to make themselves uh, look innocent by saying, "Oh, we're gonna put a black Superman actor, black Superman, like BLM." Yeah, they pretty much refuse to help out Ray Fisher. At least with this, it feels like they're actually genuine with making Sam Wilson feel like an important character from here. He's not replaced. He's not meant to be like a black Chris Evans or like a black Steve Rogers. He's pretty much going to be the new guy to take over the role, and that's kind of like not as good as Miles Morales taking over the role of Spider Man in the Ultimate Universe, and vice versa, and so on and so forth. But
hmm
it, at least here, it just feels a little more like natural for this to be made. Because in some ways, John Walker definitely has a feeling of like an asshole. Like he's pretty much like one you wouldn't want to trust. He's pretty violent. He kind of looks like the guy that would go rogue and pretty much ruin the name of Captain America. Not that Steve Rogers in the MCU is my favorite character of all time. I mean, he kind of looks like a bit of a fresh cut guy. Like he needs to have that sort of like powerful presence to him.
Well,
But at least here,
that's different.
but like at least with this, at least with Steve Rogers, he definitely has a more like soulful feel to him, if that makes sense, compared to John Walker. What surprised me was the fact that we got Hydra once again, or like at least mentioned
Oh,
or
damn.
involved. Especially now that we got
That's storyline back.
Zemo. Like Zemo is back. You might know him for the dance off that we got. 10-hour dance or something like that.
Hmm. Zemo.
Finding
Let's
Zemo.
dance.
Yeah, 10-hour dance because fans asked for it, but it's not as good as Peter Parker's dance from Spider Man 3. Both dances.
That's unmatchable.
Yeah, Peter Parker's smooth.
Zemo's pretty clunky.
Yeah, that's pretty much true. But either way, like consider the fact that we get to see a way like what these characters are doing after both the Captain America trilogy as well as the way things are set up for Endgame. I kind of like this method of seeing how characters react in the MCU after Endgame because you look at something like Far From Home, that was garbage, straight up trash. And it's just a stupid movie made for the Gen Zers that are obsessed with like the shittiest humor and consume TikTok garbage and get nothing that's natural or genuine from their experience. And they have the audacity to call other films bad.
Yeah, I feel like they lack comprehension of the world itself. But let's just let them be in their own bubble and have fun. Fun, 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 fun,
Oh god, that reference.
fun.
Like honestly, like this feels a lot more like feels much more like natural of a continuation from what we got. I mean, at this point, you kind of feel intrigued of seeing what would happen with the Shield now that it's being passed on to the likes of Bucky Barnes and Sam Wilson and whatnot. Even if it is kind of annoying to see Captain America become an old man again. But hey, at least that "No, I don't think I will" line was good. Good for memes, more like.
Let's go memes. The only thing I care about.
Like honestly, like I can't really complain much about the way this series has been handled. I mean, some people might find it too like heavy on politics, but whereas you look at stuff like the way Captain Marvel tried to tackle any sorts of things that would go against, like we know when people talk about male toxicity or blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
It's pretty much said that
Well,
sorry to interrupt.
I don't think that the normal or the general audience for the Marvel shit can actually process that complex theme in politics. So what I hear from Falcon and the Winter Soldier and what I got out of WandaVision is that they do everything but only 50% of it. Like to not oversaturate the public. You know what I mean? It's just there. They show it. They try to uh, like build it up, but up to a very half point, and that's it. And that's why both endings. That's what I keep hearing. Like both endings for the show were slightly underwhelming.
I mean, it was cool to see Captain America portrayed by Sam Wilson, and hell, his suit looked pretty cool. Not gonna lie, like one of the best MCU suits, I'd say.
I agree. I really like the picture I saw. It was just very, very good.
Yep. Wow. I'd say it's better than some of the recent Captain America suits. It just feels very like impactful. It feels prominent. It feels strong.
Hmm.
But main point is the fact that like while I did enjoy the series, there's no way I'm going to go into the same level of like, oh gee, this is like totally lined up with the way people like shot this real life event because I can't correlate stuff without real life without mentioning fiction. It's like shut up, critics. Like get a life, touch some grass, and stop connecting real world stuff with fictional stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Just to put my grain of salt there. I think it's okay when you want to translate your ideologies slightly and connect a bit with the product, let's say. But when you just like misinform and bring stuff from the real world into this fictional space and try to make these forced connections, you're not only ruining the experience for others, but you're just sounding like a stupid fool.
Then and the fact that like generally speaking, the way the politics stuff was handled in this series was like more subtle than the way the reviewers made it seem because like the reviewers are pretty much like going on with the fact that oh my OMG like this is like based on this based on that so, like please guys give me brownie points please like someone like touch my like give me some coochie like come on be strong like be brave like get a life like you can always mention the politics of this series but like the difference between the way people talk about it in Watchmen and the way they do it here. It's the fact that Watchmen, it's like much more, it's like much smarter. Like it knows when to like remind you when to think. Plus the fact that actual people who have seen the movie delve into it and know when to separate real life from fiction. This is a fictional world. The politics of this world are not always going to have to correlate with the politics of our world. And my mind's messed up again. Thanks, stupid ass reviewers, verified bitches.
It's all their fault. It's all their fault. Fucking assholes.
But oh yeah. I think I'm going to have to try and like make sure that stupid fucks. See what happens when you try to mess us up, verifieds. I'm going to sue you all in court. And I'm going to buy Twitter.
Trust me. Don't enter into their game. They want you to get in that game, but you should not. You should stand your ground.
Well, I'm going to stand my ground by saying that The Falcon and the Winter Soldier is a better series than what we got with WandaVision, mainly because it feels more of a smarter show, whereas WandaVision definitely felt like a more weirder experience. That being said, the way it talked about itself politically, well, I do find it interesting that it's different from the way Watchmen did. I do have to criticize the reviewers for making it seem like it's a super duper smart series that correlates with everything else in the real world. It's like, yes, we know the stuff that happened in real life has been messed up, but touch some grass, please. I know for a fact that Batman v Superman has political stuff in it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to have to correlate it with anything that happens in real life. I'm not a loser that's going to see the fight between Batman and Superman as the same sort of fight between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. What am I, 5 years old?
Just go to therapy. Touch grass. Go to bed early. Make your mama happy. And shut the fuck up. That's it.
Oh, don't forget to open a can of Coke too.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Although I prefer Sprite cranberry. Alright, moving on. Next up, we'll be talking about Sailor Moon Eternal, which is a continuation to the third season of Crystal. And for those that don't know, Sailor Moon Eternal is not in the same universe as the 1990s show, which might be the more familiar one, but Crystal is actually the different take. I don't know if you want to call it a reboot or a different adaptation, because Crystal is apparently meant to be based on the manga, whereas the 90s series is an adaptation. It's based on it, but it's not exactly like it.
So you could say that canonically, Crystal would be more in line with what the original story is.
Yeah, it's like an animated version of that. Think of how in the 90s the Pokemon manga, or in general actually, the Pokemon manga is different from the Pokemon anime.
Yeah.
Because the manga generally starts off with different characters that are based on the game, whereas in the anime it's obviously Ash Ketchum interacting with some of the female characters or the male characters that are based on the game.
Yeah. I don't know if Pokemon was the best example, because I think the first Pokemon thing was the video game, wasn't it?
Yeah, the video game came first.
Then it probably came like a manga, and then the show, or maybe first the show.
Okay,
let's it doesn't matter.
Sorry, Pokemon. You're a fun series to watch, but this is talking about Sailor Moon. This is not talking about Pokemon. Although we're going to talk about Pokemon at some point, just to give it some love and attention.
Maybe.
But for now,
okay,
I'm focusing
let's keep going.
Yeah. Okay, so basically, this takes place after season 3 of Sailor Moon Crystal, which I have not watched because I'm currently watching the 90s dub for the US of Sailor Moon, 90s anime, because the Twitter community is very kind, and I mean it. They're actually great people that I've talked with from different accounts. And whether it's me talking about the events from the show or the artwork, or me just putting referencing Optimus Prime, and other stuff like they're like Transformers and whatnot. Like they're great individuals, and I can't complain about them. They're a breath of fresh air amongst comic book Twitter, if you ask me.
They probably are. You're lucky to find a new fan base to spend a little more time.
I'll admit that I'm kind of like an outsider in this because my world consists of mech, weapons, suits, powers, capes, ships, and whatnot. And the magical girls in the series definitely stick out surprisingly so. But the series has more than meets the eye to it, and in the way this series of movies does as well. So basically, what happens is that like at some point it's time for Chibiusa to go back to like her future. Unfortunately, we get the events of the Dead Moon Circus going after everybody, and now they pretty much have to delve into going up against the likes of the Amazoness Quartet, who pretty much like sent a tiger to go after Usagi and Chibiusa, which kind of goes into a crazy session at first. But then, like after they turn into their sailor forms or the super sailor forms, they stop the lemurs. However, unfortunately, Mamoru gets injury in his chest, which sounds painful. And the fact that I was watching the episode from the 90s dub where Jupiter gets introduced, getting chest pain at a young age is actually very scary.
Yikes.
But Pala Pala from the quartet switches the ages of Sagi and Chibiusa, which happened in the 90s anime as well. And I'm kind of surprised it actually happened like that. You'd expect it to happen in like the anime itself, but eh, maybe it'll make more sense when I watch the rest of Crystal, which I don't know if I want to. I prefer the art style of the 90s one already. And the fact that it's like so similar to what we got, but with different animation style to it, kind of doesn't seem as like exciting to delve into. Like when you delve into like a different version of like a series like Spider-Man, then going into the Amazing Spider-Man, like it doesn't seem so bad because you have a different cast, you have different characters, different setting. It makes you like would it make
Yeah,
you feel so bad?
yeah, yeah. That also, I think that those classics like Pokemon, Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, they just have this kind of 90s vibe that is just so pleasant to watch. I don't know if that happens to you. Personally, my favorite animation style is around the 2000s, like the beginning of 2000s.
I like
But
the
the feeling of the 90s animation is also so unique.
yeah, I like the 80s animation style, 90s, 2000s, like early 2000s. Like I'm kind of selective because I'm not that big of an anime guy. I'm only delving into Sailor Moon because it's a surprising show compared to what I've seen. The only other anime I've seen is like ReZero with my cousin, and well, I did enjoy the show because I was surprised by it. I kind of preferred the art style of the 90s as well as, in some ways, the voice acting for Deke's involvement of Sailor Moon for the 90s because it just feels more unique. It feels iconic. It feels distinct. Sure, the characters
Yeah,
don't have as much of a prominence in TV as, say, SpongeBob or Bugs Bunny or Mickey Mouse, but compared to a lot of anime voice actors who feel been there, done that, and like not that distinct, the voice cast for the series like is as distinct as I mean, for somewhat contemporary characters as like Mario and Luigi's voices from the '90s shows, or Gary Chalk and David Kay in Beast Wars.
yeah.
It's like they're not as prominent as those other characters like that I mentioned, but but they still feel iconic. They're stuck in your minds for a good reason, and they're great to have nonetheless.
That's cool to hear.
Additionally, like I feel like I'm going into too much about this. I just realized we went into way more about the '90s stuff than I am uh Crystal and Eternal. But yeah, well, pretty much. Like, I actually do want to talk about the '90s dub at some point. Maybe I'll do that when I finish season one. We'll see. This one's for you, Sailor Moon fans. But back to the movie. Like, I have to say, like the way it's paced is kind of feels more like two episodes delved in, like made into a single movie. I mean, each
Really?
like it's split into two parts. You have part one and part two,
Oh,
which are I presume every episode lasts up to 22 minutes, so you get like at least around 40, like four episodes, which isn't a bad thing. And at the very least, it does feel like they're connecting everything and to make it feel like a big film. And it does kind of feel like a
okay.
surprise. Like maybe it'd make more sense, to, like I said, if I delved into Crystal. But as we talked about in my rant, it's something I want to wait on. But back to the film itself, we get to see Queen Ahelia, and she's pretty much wanting to go after the Guardians and like have their nightmares corrupted so she can get the crystal, which is kind of a surprising thing, but it makes sense. We get the Amazon trio to go after three of the scouts, Ami, Ray, and Makoto, or as they're known in the English '90s era, Amy, Ray, and Lita, aka Mercury, Mars, and Jupiter. They're able to break free no problem though. They get their sailor forms and destroy the trio, which is fine. I mean, actually kind of surprised that they got their super forms though. I will say that from what I've heard, the transformations for the characters feels much better handled here than an actual crystal. So
Oh,
like it's kind of like it's kind of one of those things that maybe it would make more sense. Like I said, if I did, like let's just get this out of the way. The animation in Crystal is just weird.
okay. So you have seen like something from Crystal.
Yeah, from what I've like, some friends told me about the fact that the animation style is like feels doesn't have the same sort of identity or soul. It doesn't feel uh as impactful. It doesn't feel as energetic nor as iconic. The '90s. I'm not saying that the '90s Sailor Moon like series or the dub in general are like the most perfect shows of all time, because there are other shows that are just nicely animated, like Batman the Animated Series, or to delve into Japanese entertainment, Akira is gorgeous.
Yeah, one of the best pieces of animation ever.
Yep.
But
Obvious example, yes. But main point is that '90s dub just has that sort of like uniqueness to it. It has like energy. It has soul. And that's kind of
yeah,
surprising me because I never grew up with Sailor Moon. I'm a new fan. And
hmm,
like I'm not a purist of anything. I mean, okay, sure, I might be the same way with like Spider-Man from the Raimi trilogy, but at least I was more welcoming of Andrew Garfield's incarnation over time. Then the fact that I'm normally against purists because I've seen them with Superman when they go after Henry Cavill just because his portrayal is different from Christopher Reeve, despite, everyone else being different, as well as G1ers because I prefer when we get like different versions of Transformers and I do the same thing. Like people complain about how the Transformers in the Michael Bay films are different, but like that's so. But so are they. They're also different in the Unicron trilogy and the Robots in Disguise.
yeah.
Like,
I don't think you're a purist at all because you've said positive things about stuff that has been readapted and was part of your childhood, and you may have nostalgic feelings towards it, but you're still um, mostly positive about new things unless they have like bad background, aka Warner Brothers. But okay,
yeah, it makes
just
sense.
insisting on Sailor Moon. and I think Crystal specifically. Maybe the thing that happens is that nowadays in Japan, the animation is cheaper and maybe it pops up much more. Like it's wow colors, but it's not as worked and detailed as it was back in the 90s, where everything had to be hand drawn and you had a lot of workers there, and even if they were exploited, because they are still exploited up to today.
Jesus.
No, yeah, it's a reality. Most workers in Japan are exploited.
It
Uh,
sucks. You know,
yeah,
it
that sucks.
it kind of sucks that not many people delve into it, but I get what you mean. Like, definitely, it's just that when I look at Sailor Moon Crystal, I kind of feel like it feels like it's trying to be this new take on it, which isn't bad, but the execution leaves a lot to be desired. The facial expressions feel weird, especially when you freeze frame it. The like when I saw a screen cap of like Tuxedo Mask being injured and Sailor Moon's like trying to comfort him from the pain, her limbs are much longer than they should be. Like she's Slender Moon in this case. And
Man, I just want to mention that what you're experiencing right now kind of reminds me of when Dragon Ball Super came out and the animation was horrible.
oh boy.
I can show you pictures so you laugh at it.
Yeah, maybe. I'll probably show you some of like what I've seen with Slender Moon, Crystal and the like. But yeah, it's like thankfully what I'm trying to say is that thankfully Sailor Moon Eternal's animation is actually much, much better than from what I've seen with Crystal. Now, I'm pretty sure Crystal has improved over the years, maybe, but I'm not seeing it right away. I've still got to watch the season one of the '90s dub, and then season two, and then delve into season three and four before either getting out of the way with stars or just rewatch everything with the '90s redub made by Viz Media. We'll see. Don't quote me on that. Reminded when Obama said, expect Deadpool 2 discussions in 2013. Maybe. I don't know. It's 2023, dumbass. But,
look,
yeah.
look, look at look at this, look at this, look at this, man.
Okay.
Okay, look at this.
All right.
Like imagine waiting 20 years for Dragon Ball, and they give you this.
All right. Let's see what we got.
That's Goku.
That
That's Goku.
Goku.
It's so badly drawn.
Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna show you a screen cap of like of what Sailor Moon looked like in Crystal. Oh my god! Warning: what you're about to see, what you're about to see is actually pretty weird. But let me first get the picture. Uh, while we're at it, I also want to talk about like going into the movie again. Uh, it was kind of fun to see like the animation be much better, but although we once again have to deal with the fact that we have a Pegasus involved, which is Helios, and spoiler alert, I don't like the character Helios. Granted, I've seen no context clips from uh, Sailor Moon Says, rest in peace, you're a cool channel. But that being said, when I saw the way it was trying to like be with uh, like Rini or Chibi Uso, it was like, no, come on now, come on. Oh, I sent this to you by the way. Why there's a poker's face?
Dude, just wait. Why is she so? I don't want to say skinny, but why is she so long?
Oh no,
like
that's just
elongated.
oh god. I hate to see all this sort of stuff when the fact that the fictional character herself is a happy birthday worth celebrating, but hey, gotta remind you about what I'm trying to say with crystal animation.
She has a drunk face in the last one.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on.
Okay.
Yeah, Minako can't transform somehow. She has to try and survive along with Artemis. And seeing her try and like struggle to survive was kind of like surprising because Minako's one of those characters who has kind of had a crazy life. Apparently, like from what I know, the fact that she was once Sailor V was like cool. Kind of connected a prototype of Sailor Moon as a prequel now, and it does a much better job of connecting itself to a different piece of media than the Bumblebee movie does with the rest of the Transformers movies. Even though that's a different story, so let's move on. But yeah, Super Sailor Venus gets into the action, destroys Xenotime and Zeolite. The other Guardians are trapped in vines, and unfortunately, Usagi starts to get sick from the Black Rose that's within her. And now we're going to delve into the end game of sorts, especially now that Sailor Saturn, speaking with Otaru, says that the second coming is at hand, as we're about to delve into it. Part 2, which involves the other scouts, or Senshi, Haruka, Michiru, and Setsuna, getting their crystals. They transform to supercellular Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And they're also going to support theater Senshi. Unfortunately, Moon and Tuxedo Mask are still injured. Zirconia retreats with the quartet. And pretty much, like, thankfully, Helios, despite being a creepo horse in some instances, at least saves Usagi and Mamoru and everyone else to Elysian. But like, it's kind of like a lot more surprising that the second part of the film feels a lot more uh, like where things start to like rise the game, because the first part definitely felt more like a typical episode or 4 episodes made into different segments. It's kind of weird to describe if you haven't seen the movie. I'm trying to say,
Yeah. I'm having a bit of trouble understanding, but
yeah, and
what I
it's
what I get out of it is that yeah, it kind of feels like an arc of, let's say, 2 or 4 episodes that are condensed in a movie.
yeah, in a way, kind of reminiscent of how Pokemon did that. And I think Japan is known for doing that because thinking about their Super Sentai movies or the Kamen Rider films, they're not like proper blockbusters. They're just extended versions of an episode made to promote one Megazord or Morpher toy that's going to be used for one scene and never be brought back again.
Yeah,
But
they love to do that.
yeah, we'll see that the final event was actually done up very nicely. From seeing like the cats, Luna, Artemis, and Diana turn into human forms, to seeing the battle, as well as have Osaki and Tuxedo Mask kiss and break free from Nehelenia's nightmare and retaining the silver crystal. It's all good. And of course, we had to end with Chibi Moon not only being a full fledged guardian of her own right, but she also gets to go back to the future, as well as have everyone have peace restored, which is pretty nice, I have to say. But it's just it kind of makes me want to end like it's kind of like I feel like I'm jumping the shark too much to go straight into this. Like, yeah, let's go like share my thoughts on this because everyone else is doing it. I thought, why not join the bandwagon too? Just because it looks like fun. It looks like a fun movie to watch. But no, I realize that there's a lot of questions I have to like answer when I have to watch the other stuff.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. But at least did it give you the Sailor Moon vibes, like the Sailor Moon feeling of oh, this is charming, but also it has like this action packed moment, and hey, look, that looks cool.
Yep.
That like
Especially the
do that.
second part when shit starts to like get serious. The first part definitely felt more like a more casual experience, but the second part
Hmm.
definitely feels more genuine. Although I will say, like, if you were to watch both of them at once, you wouldn't really get that sort of disjointed feeling. But then again, I was trying to like catch up with the '90s dub as well, so maybe I lose in this game. Who knows? If anything, I'm just going to like go to vocals and have the voices of Barack Obama, Donald Trump, George Bush, and Bill Clinton make a statement by saying that I am still learning about the franchise, leave me alone and whatnot. uh,
You don't need to justify yourself. I think it's valid.
all right. Let's end this segment up by saying that Sailor Moon Eternal is a pretty good film to delve into, but I wouldn't recommend it if you're not going to be a fan of the '90s. Like, if you're thinking it's going to be the same as the '90s, or if you're uh, not as invested into this sort of thing uh, as, like, if you're not going to watch Crystal as much as I would. Not that I'm going to watch Crystal right away. It's just that, like, it's kind of hard to recommend if unless you want to learn about the series right away and then get into Crystal. Hey, Crystal's going to be on Netflix now, which is cool. But as for me, I'm trying to catch up with the '90s dub, and while I did enjoy Eternal, I don't think it's going to make me want to watch Crystal right away.
That's fair.
And finally, we'll be delving into the Xbox, the original Xbox. And before anyone asks, yes, we're going to talk about the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube later in the year. Now,
Xbox. I'm slightly older than the original Xbox. What do
yeah,
you think about
honestly, the original Xbox is one of those things that, you know, kind of feels like it's a big boy console in some ways, if that makes sense.
it? Yeah.
Especially like if you were a young kid, you might have either gotten a GameCube or more commonly a PlayStation 2.
Well, I was always more of a PlayStation kind of guy. I don't know why. Maybe it's because of the prices in my country that just make it more accessible. But from what I got from like using Xbox is that it also had interesting games.
All right.
Maybe it has like even some hidden gems that when you grow up you kind of start to appreciate them a bit more. But let's say in this console race that has been historically in the market, uh, PlayStation got the upper hand, and maybe the time they were like more rivalry than ever was with PlayStation, with the PlayStation 2 and with PlayStation 3. I don't know if you would agree with me.
Well, I will say that when it comes to the Xbox, it definitely had a lot of things for it to go up against because the PlayStation was like a fairly new challenger. It already had the PS1 beforehand. And meanwhile, Nintendo has been
Hmm.
around for so long. Additionally, Xbox, like Microsoft, is new into this sort of foray. They're more used to making computers. They're not quite involved with stuff like video game consoles. And on top of that,
Yeah.
uh, you have like Nintendo and Sony are Japanese companies. Microsoft is an American company. So definitely a lot of feats for like Xbox to be recognized for. But what else should they be recognized for? The titles that they have. there are a few that stick out to my mind the most. In the trailer, obviously Halo Combat Evolved because it definitely like changed the way we see first person shooters even more. It definitely made like a massive leap compared to what we've seen with the likes of other shooters from the past, like Wolfenstein, Duke Nukem, Doom, etc. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, yeah. Halo was groundbreaking for the time and for what it's gonna be from now on. Most shooters, it just changed the game. Literally, uh, metaphorically speaking, and also literally speaking, it changed games.
Then the fact
I
that
don't know.
hmm,
Oh yeah, go on.
then the fact that we've also got stuff like uh, the the way they are trying to make the series like well not trying to they make the series feel like a big like brand already. I mean Halo is one of those franchises that like even if we get the occasional like letdown from some of the titles or like some of the characters like Guardians has been notorious. Like the Halo series is still going strong. Although I do believe that talking about Halo would be for another day. That being said, starting off your console with an identity like that is a great way to go into the market because like it definitely gives you that sort of identity, kind of like how Nintendo has like an identity of its own with Mario and Zelda and whatnot. Sony has an identity of its own from its Gran Turismo series as well as other titles. Although I will say that because I'm kind of a noob with some of the early Sony stuff, I'm learning more about it. I kind of consider Crash and Spyro to be sort of their mascots.
Yeah, and Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah, though that's more PS2 than PS1.
Yeah,
So
true.
to start off with, like stuff like Halo was a pretty good idea. I mean, sure, it's gonna be like it juxtaposes everything. It gives you that sort of like presence. It makes you stand out amongst typically cartoony worlds. Like whether it's the more family friendly approach of like Mario or the rated T 10 and up for Crash and Spyro sort of feel, where it's cartoony but not on the same level of like Mario, to the more teen, mature audience feel of Halo.
Yeah, it also, I think that's the reason why I wasn't that much into Xbox when I was younger, because it felt like, yeah, this is probably for the
Big boys.
not yeah, for the grown-ups, or for teenagers, which I wasn't yet, or maybe like I want to like put it into a generation, like how who would it be, the
Teenagers, young
millennials,
adults.
would it be, yeah, would it fit the millennials to say that it's more Xbox?
I think it might fit well for like for like the middle schoolers, high schoolers, college students.
Yeah,
But it
yeah,
does.
yeah,
But it feels welcoming in a way. Like sure, you get the weird opening cutscene for the intro. Sure, you might get like the weird noises compared to like the classic Nintendo 64 startup or the beautiful, beautiful sound of the PlayStation 2 startup.
yeah,
But that being said, like Xbox definitely has an audience of its own, but more importantly, like the games itself also work very well. I mean, I don't want to delve into too many of the titles, but for like the ones I know the most, apart from Halo, like they got access to Conquer, which was originally a Nintendo 64, but it fits Microsoft even more because like sure we have to deal with the fact that Rare bought out everything that was on a Nintendo 64 apart from Donkey Kong since that was Nintendo. And while some people might be upset that Banjo Kazooie and Conquer aren't on Nintendo consoles anymore, in some ways, like Conquer feels more befitting for Microsoft and Nintendo, if you ask me, or Rare. Nintendo, like it fits more with Microsoft Rare,
Yeah.
where like it embraces the parody of the like cartoony, like family friendly nature of video game IPs like Mario even more, and like it's so gorgeous to see Live and Reloaded because I know people love the Nintendo 64 game, but Live and Reloaded just feels even much more fulfilling beyond just the graphics. Like the gameplay itself is also better. I mean, the shooting in some of the levels is much superior than what we got, and the setting just feels much more like alive and worthwhile compared to the Nintendo 64 version, which felt kind of been there, done that with its appearances. Like it doesn't feel all that different from Donkey Kong 64 or Banjo Kazooie.
Hmm. Yeah. What I got most of the times with the Xbox games is that, well, kind of contradictory because I just said that I wasn't too much of an Xbox because I wasn't mature enough. But one of my childhood games was Half Life, and I see a lot of the things from Xbox kind of resembling Half Life, but it's like enhanced, like it is improved, and it has much more detail. So maybe it could have been a good place to jump in when I was younger.
Yeah, I mean, either way, like regardless of what console you grew up with, I mean, anyone from the 2000s that had like a lovely experience with either a PlayStation 2 or an Xbox or a GameCube would probably have a much better time than people would if their first console was a Google Stadia. Those poor suckers.
We should feel empathy.
Yeah. And of course, another title that comes to mind is Forza, which call me crazy, but I think
Huh.
it's the answer to Sony's Gran Turismo. Like, there's a lot of racing games out there. Some come to mind that aren't Gran Turismo or Forza are Midnight Club, as well as Need for Speed. But Forza definitely feels like it's got an identity of its own compared to Gran Turismo, which also has like I don't want to make it seem like Gran Turismo has less of an identity, but they both feel distinct, you know?
Yeah, I would say Gran Turismo is more realistic. Well, I don't know if realistic, but it's just more um, plain.
Like Gran Turismo has that sort of like uh more like premium feel to it. It's like much more about the career and delving into these other races to improve yourself. Whereas Forza feels more out there, more on like more outgoing, more
Yeah,
like adventurous by comparison.
yeah.
At least from what I've seen, especially considering the fact that my memory got a refresh from watching the Xbox live stream and to see cars driving around in the open with no street racing, no intensity, especially in Mexico's landscapes, is just beautiful.
Damn. And also that franchise has evolved like a lot.
Absolutely.
Um, well, I don't know if it counts, but Dead Rising was also a thing. Was it later?
It's been a while since I've seen like the clips, but main point is that like it's all about the way you like give your game an identity, and to their credit, they know how to like make the most out of uh get into a sort of like environment for Forza and its other franchises. Like Xbox definitely went a step above and beyond to ensure that everything is like what it has.
Yeah.
And considering the fact that a lot of people nowadays are pretty much obsessed with talking about like, oh, my console's better than yours, or like my game can do this. I mean, console wars were sure prominent back then, especially with the competitors in the markets. But that being said, I appreciate the fact that Microsoft was like delving into stuff like this without like while still being in some sort of prior experience. Like they have the balls to make their own stamp in the market compared to what we see with uh nowadays where console feels like it's going to have a lot to live up to, otherwise it's going to dissolve.
Yeah. Two things that like they did a good job getting into the video game business. And second, I never understood that platform battle. Um, but just let me say one thing that a god among men said once: PC always. That's what Henry Cavill said once in an interview. I don't know if you remember.
I remember that. Henry Cavill, I'd appreciate yourself even more if you did not say that the Snyder Cut was unnecessary. But hey,
he said that?
yeah, he said that it doesn't make a difference and that's like niche or BVS was niche. Eh, oh well, he's not going to get his Superman movie anytime soon because he showed Warner Brothers. This is the most like this review. Honestly, thinking about it, this review has gotten the most amount of tangents we've had. I mean, we go from being fairly normal with like Watchmen to then talking about how stupid the verifieds were comparing the events of the Falcon and Winter Soldier to this and to the real world stuff. And then me talking about how I'm so far behind on Sailor Moon and how Crystal's animation is so weird. And here we are now talking about how like Henry Cavill
Like
said.
it's all over the place slightly, but
All
like
right.
I don't know who would hear all of this and would say, "Yeah, we have been following everything."
Yeah. But I think for our sanity, it's best to like cut it off from here because I need to get a drink of water and cleanse my mind from the weird stuff on the internet.
Okay.
So that'll do it for today's episode, guys. Thanks for showing up, and next time you see us at a podcast, we're going to probably delve into three subject matters, but at the very least, they'll involve a newly popular TV show, as well as a reflection on a specific video game franchise that turned 30 this year, but more importantly, the 10th anniversary of one of my favorite movies of all time. You could say that it's based on a part of our galaxy.
Dun dun.
Hint, it's the moon, but it's not Sailor Moon, it's a different kind of moon, a dark of the moon.
Oh
But
my.
that'll be enough for today. Thanks for showing up, guys, and I'll see you next time.